TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah evidently holds in Lebanon despite a number of breaches by the Iranian proxy. IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi instructs the Israeli military to prepare for a scenario in which the ceasefire in Lebanon collapses. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham asserts that the only future for the Gaza Strip includes the involvement of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and the Iranian-proxy Hezbollah evidently holds in Lebanon, despite a number of breaches by Hezbollah's terror operatives, resulting in deadly fire. IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi asserted, following the adoption of the ceasefire, that the enforcement of the U.S. brokered agreement will be determined.
The activity in Lebanon was very determined, and the enforcement of the ceasefire agreement will be even more determined. With determination, according to the guidelines approved yesterday by the Minister of Defense, the Prime Minister, and the Cabinet, Hezbollah operatives who approach our troops, the border area, and the villages within the area we have marked will be struck. We do not intend to spend months in war, displace people from their homes, and not return them now safely. There are ground troops from the ground forces and the Northern Command. They are the first to encounter those returning to the villages with a warning, with fire, with capabilities, and mostly with air support. There are aerial assets, constantly airborne, and naval vessels gathering information and also capable of striking in the western sector.
Despite the IDF's clear announcement of determined enforcement, a number of Hezbollah operatives breached the outline, drawing deadly IDF fire in a number of cases, and the forceful apprehension of at least 4 others who've been seized for interrogation.
Throughout the day, our forces have operated to enforce the ceasefire agreement, identified suspects approaching restricted areas, detained them, and fired warning shots. We have also eliminated terrorists today. IDF forces are positioned in various areas in southern Lebanon. Residents of southern Lebanon, pay close attention to this map. We are present and operating in the area. The presence of armed operatives in the region that is marked on this map constitutes a violation, and any armed operative will be neutralized or apprehended.
In parallel to active enforcement, General Halevi instructed his general staff to prepare for a viable case in which the ceasefire would collapse, to include new contingencies that would further deepen Israel's military achievement versus the Iranian proxy in Lebanon.
Above all, we are preparing, getting ready for the possibility that this approach won't succeed. We will know how to analyze it again, cut deeper, and it will be stronger. We are very, very determined to enforce the guidelines and bring about a completely different reality to the residents of the North.
Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein, in an interview to the Qatari-owned Al Jazeera network, initially insisted that the ceasefire struck between Israel and Hezbollah is a permanent ceasefire, further underscoring that in the next 60 days, the IDF is expected to withdraw to the first 2 to 3 kilometers from the Israeli border in what is expected to turn into a type of demilitarized zone.
The Israeli military that is on the ground in the first 2-3 kilometers from the border will remain in place for now. As the Lebanese army will redeploy back down to the south, the Israeli forces will leave. So this is not that it will take 60 days for the Israeli forces to leave the country. they'll leave the territory, but rather the first forces will leave over the next several days or first couple of weeks, and gradually over 60 days they will all depart.
Hochstein went on to highlight that the United States and France would share the implementation of the mechanism aimed at enforcing the ceasefire's outline. And while neither France or the United States will commit any troops to enforce the ceasefire, its implementation will be done by the Lebanese Armed Forces and the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, commonly referred to by its acronym UNIFIL.
Well, the mechanism will have UNIFIL in it. It will be chaired by the United States with France, but UNIFIL will be in it. But there requires a lot of coordination as the Lebanese army deploys into these areas in the south, and making sure that the Israelis then know when they're coming so that the Israelis can deploy. That is the job that the mechanism is going to be doing in order to make sure that everything is smooth and seamless.
It is important to highlight that while the Biden administration places significant stock in implementing the ceasefire, Hezbollah's most senior political figure in Lebanon, Hassan Fadlallah, proclaimed that the Iranian proxy emerged victorious in the war against Israel, while unabashedly stating in defiance of Hochstein's remarks that Hezbollah did not accept the American-Israeli outline for a cessation of hostilities, which dictates a withdrawal of all Hezbollah forces to the north of the Litani River.
اليوم نحن أمام إنجاز وطني.
Today we are in front of a national achievement represented by the fact that we didn't submit to the Israeli conditions. We did not accept the Israeli conditions. The resistance remains and is present in every house and every place. The government of Netanyahu set big goals for its war: a new Middle East, changing the infrastructure of Lebanon and the face of Lebanon, destroying the resistance, disarming the resistance, and setting up a buffer zone in the south of the Litani and the return of the settlers by firepower. Which of these goals did they achieve? We are in the south of the Litani and near the border, and the members of the resistance who were fighting and remain fighting, some of them came out to help their people in returning, opening roads and securing a safe return.
Setting the record straight in spite of not accomplishing all of Israel's objectives for Lebanon, IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari underscored that Iran's leadership has lost a strategic asset right next to Israel's border.
Over the past year, our forces conducted 5 major operational efforts against Hezbollah, the murderous terrorist organization that has dragged Lebanon to the place it finds itself in today. We degraded Hezbollah's launch capabilities, struck its strategic assets, eliminated its leadership, and damaged its command and control chain. We have also targeted its ability to rearm and resupply, and we have severely disrupted its ability to carry out its planned infiltration into our territory, a plan it had meticulously prepared to carry out on the day of command. The IDF operated against Hezbollah according to a structured plan, taking advantage of operational opportunities, using different tactics, demonstrating courage, and conducting strikes throughout the entirety of Lebanon and the Middle East. We have significantly weakened Hezbollah and dealt it a very severe blow. We've damaged the threat it has built over many years against the state of Israel and its citizens. Hezbollah is also an Iranian strategic project in which the leadership of Iran has invested substantial resources, money, weapons, and manpower over the years. Iran's leadership has lost a strategic asset right next to our border.
הנהגת איראן איבדה נכס אסטרטגי צמוד לגבולנו.
Meanwhile, Egypt and Cairo are hoping to capitalize on the perceived momentum on the Lebanese front to try and reinvigorate negotiations for a ceasefire arrangement in the Gaza Strip.
The continuation of Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip and the ongoing violations in the West Bank were discussed. We also discussed the sincere and persistent Egyptian and Qatari efforts that have lasted for over a year to reach a deal that ensures an immediate ceasefire, spares the blood of the brotherly Palestinian people, and secures the release of all hostages along with a number of Palestinian prisoners.
The Qatari foreign minister, whose country hosted Hamas's leadership until recently, and championed anti-Israel disinformation throughout the West, claimed that Doha had warned the international community of the prospects of wider regional escalation, stopping short from mentioning the belligerence of the Islamic Republic of Iran, with which Qatar enjoys friendly relations.
كانت اليوم فرصة مهمة أثناء
Today was an important opportunity during discussions with the President and the Minister regarding the situation in the region and its deterioration, particularly in light of the war on the Gaza Strip and the war on Lebanon. We discussed how this conflict, which we had warned about from the beginning, could escalate and directly impact all the countries in the region. Unfortunately, we are now living through and witnessing this unfold.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, after meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, highlighted that he believes the only future for the Gaza Strip entails a solution spearheaded by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the United Arab Emirates.
Somebody has to take over Gaza. Somebody has to rebuild it. It's not going to be the United States. We're not going to rebuild Gaza, and we're not going to take it over because we would fail. I think the idea of a long-term military solution for Israel is going to be difficult. Eventually, somebody is going to have to come and rebuild Gaza and create an entity in the Palestinian world that would live in peace with Israel. The only group that I think has a chance of doing that is the Arab world, led by the Crown Prince and the UAE.
Senator Graham further voiced his conviction about the reason behind the heinous October 7th attack by the Islamist Hamas against Israel, which essentially distanced prospects for normalization between Jerusalem and Riyadh.
The difficulty of achieving normalization after October the 7th is extraordinary. The attack of October the 7th against our allies in Israel, in my view, was calculated in terms of timing and ferocity to stop what was a fairly promising march toward normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I think Iran's worst nightmare is for the Arab world to make peace with Israel and move together toward the light.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Moreover, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based and as such, broadcast free of charge, please consider making a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.